All right, guys, today we are going to go over evaluating expressions. If you were here yesterday, you've already done the first probably page of these notes. So if you were here yesterday, you can go ahead and just scroll through the video and find where you left off with your class and then work through the video from there. If you were not here yesterday, you need to make sure you have a copy of the notes and go ahead and copy and follow along. Some important definitions for evaluating expressions. First one is algebraic expression. An algebraic expression is a mathematical expression with variables, numbers, and operations. So, an example of an algebraic expression might be something like this: x divided by 3 plus 2y minus 6. This has variables, which are letters that we use to represent an unknown quantity. It has numbers, and this particular expression has all operations in it. It has addition, it has subtraction, it has multiplication, and it has division in it. A numerical expression. We have been working with these since the beginning of the year, and you've seen these since you were young. A numerical expression is a mathematical expression with numbers and operations only. So a numerical expression is not going to have any variables in it. An example of a numerical expression might be something like 2 plus a negative 4. That's a numerical expression. It could be something like 6 times 2. Or it could be something a little bit harder like 4 squared plus 9 times 2 minus 8. When talking about expressions, we have to talk about the parts of an expression really quickly. Expressions are divided into terms. This particular expression, 3x plus 5, has two terms. Terms are parts of the expression that are separated by either addition signs or subtraction signs. So our two terms for this expression, 3x is the first term and 5 is the second term. Looking at my first term, this term has a variable in it. It also has a coefficient. So the term is 3x. The number that is in front of the variable is called the coefficient. So the coefficient for this is 3. The variable is a letter that represents an unknown quantity, so the variable in this term is x. And finally, the second term is 5. A number that is not with a variable is called a constant. So in this one, 5 does not have a variable with it, so this is a constant. Also, we quickly need to review exponents and how they work. Exponents are a quick, short way to represent repeated multiplication. So this particular one is 4 to the second power. 4 is the base. 4 is the number that is being multiplied by itself. So this is 4 times itself. And then the exponent, or the power, tells you how many times you're going to take 4 times itself. So this is 4 to the second power. It is not 4 times 2, but rather it is 4 times itself 2 different times. 4 times 4, and then you can multiply to figure out what 4 times 4 is. It is 16. So 4 to the second power, or 4 squared, is 16. If you are not great at multiplication, grab a calculator, plug it into the calculator. When solving an exponent expression, remember you can rewrite it by expanding. So 2 to the third power is 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. So 2 to the third power is 8. Again, you could also plug that into your calculator. It is 2 times 2 times 2. All right, in the table, we're not going to do this second half. We're just going to do the first half. And we're going to do a couple together, and then you're going to work through a couple on your own. So 2 to the fourth power is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Again, you could just plug that all into your calculator. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 and hit equals, and it will tell you the answer. Or you can use mental math. 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 2 is 16. So 2 to the fourth power is 16. 3 to the third power, remember this is not just 3 times 3, but rather it is 3 times itself 3 times. So this is 3 times 3 times 3. You can plug it into your calculator, or 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 3 is 27. There are 5 more, so go ahead and do those 5. Pause the video, work through the 5. After you're done, unpause the video and compare the answers that you got with mine as I go over it. Okay, so now that you've done them, let's go over them together. 4 to the second power is 4 times 4, and we just did that above. That is 16. 5 to the third power is 5 times 5 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25, and 25 times 5 is 125. 6 to the second power is 6 times 6, and 6 times 6 is 36. 2 to the fifth power is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, and 16 times 2 means that 2 to the fifth power is 32. Finally, 4 to the third power is 4 times 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 4 gives me 64. Go ahead and turn it over to the back of this page. All right, now we're going to talk about simplifying an expression. To simplify a numeric expression, you have to follow the order of operations. PEMDAS is the most commonly used acronym to help you remember order of operations. Sometimes people say, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, or something like that. Looking at PEMDAS, P is what we would do first. The P stands for parentheses. Now, that includes traditional parentheses as well as any other grouping symbol such as a bracket. E is the second thing that we do, and E stands for exponents, which we just talked about from the page before. Now, you'll see how they say third, and they have an arrow for each one. M stands for multiplication, and D stands for division. Now, why a lot of people don't like the acronym PEMDAS is because M comes first in the acronym, so people automatically assume that you have to do multiplication before you do division. That's not true. Multiplication and division are like the same level. So it is really more like multiplication or division. And we do them in order from left to right. So it's not so much that multiplication comes first, it's like multiplication and division are on the same level. For example, in a problem like 4 divided by 2 times 6, even though the M comes first in our acronym for PEMDAS, because multiplication and division are like the same level, we do them in order from left to right. So whichever comes first in the problem for multiplication or division is what you do first. In this particular problem, division comes first. So in this expression, I would need to do the division before I could do the multiplication. Another example might be if I had 4 times 2 divided by 8. In this example, because multiplication comes first in the problem as I move from left to right, I would do the multiplication first, then the division. Going back to my acronym for PEMDAS, A stands for addition, and S stands for subtraction. Addition and subtraction work the same way as multiplication and division. It is not addition and then subtraction no matter what. It's really addition or subtraction. So same thing. They are the same level. We work in order from left to right. So in a problem such as 4 minus 2 plus 6, even though A comes first in our acronym, if I'm looking at my problem as I look from left to right, subtraction comes first. So subtraction is the operation that I would do first, and then I would do addition. If my problem said something like 4 plus 2 minus 6, then as I look from left to right, I see that addition is first, so I would do addition first. All right, let's work on some examples of simplifying numeric expressions. First, let's look at I. I'm going to go through my order of operations. First, I'm going to look at parentheses. There are no parentheses in this problem, so then I'm going to move on to the E. The E stands for exponents, and I do see that I have an exponent. So to start solving this, I'm going to underline what I'm going to do first. I have to do the exponents before I could do the addition or division, so I'm going to underline the exponent, and now I'm going to simplify that expression. 5 to the second power, remember, is not 5 times 2, but rather it is 5 times 5, and 5 times 5 is 25. After you simplify that expression, you need to then bring down everything from the problem above that you have not used. So I brought down plus 24, and I brought down divided by 3. Now I'm going to look at what I have left. I have addition left, and I have division left. Division comes before addition in order of operations. So I'm going to underline the division problem that I am going to do. 24 divided by 3, you can put that in your calculator. If you don't know, it is 8. And now, after I have done it, I'm going to bring down everything that I have not used. So I brought down a plus sign and the 25. Finally, I'm going to finish simplifying this expression all of the way. 25 plus 8 is 33. Let's look at the W together. In this particular one, I do have parentheses, so I need to work inside the parentheses first. Looking inside the parentheses, I see that I have an exponent and I have addition. So, order of operations tells me that I need to use or do the exponent inside the parentheses first. So I'm going to underline it. 2 to the second power is 2 times 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. Bring down everything that I have not used. Notice that I keep the 4 and the 5 inside of the parentheses. Because I am not fully simplified in that parentheses, I have to keep it intact. When I have the parentheses simplified all of the way, then you can drop it. But until you have that whole expression inside the parentheses simplified all of the way, you have to keep that stuff inside the parentheses. Now, inside the parentheses, I have 4 plus 5. So I'm going to go ahead and do 4 plus 5. 4 plus 5 is 9. Now, because I have simplified everything inside the parentheses, when I bring everything down, I no longer need to keep that 9 inside the parentheses, and I can bring down the division sign and the 18. Finally, I'm going to simplify this doing the division. 18 divided by 9 is 2. Now I will say, for everything that you're doing in these notes and in your assignment, your answers or your solutions as you simplify these expressions should be integers. Integers are whole numbers that are either positive or negative. That means you should not be getting any fractions and you should not be getting any decimals. So if you go to do some division and you get a fraction or a decimal, that should be a red flag that you've done it incorrectly. Go ahead and do the next 2 examples on your own. So pause the video, work the examples. After you work the examples, unpause the video and check your work with mine. All right, looking at Y. Order of operations, there are no parentheses, so I'm going to do what's next, which is exponents. I see I have an exponent in here, 2 to the 4th power. 2 to the 4th power is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16. So 2 to the 4th power is 16, and I'm going to bring down everything else that I have not used yet. Now, looking, order of operations, this is one of those. Even though addition comes first in the acronym, looking at the problem, we go in order from left to right. And looking in order from left to right, I see that I have subtraction that actually comes first in the problem. So I will need to do the subtraction before I do the addition. 21 minus 16 is 5. And then I'm going to bring down the plus 3. Simplifying 5 plus 3. 5 plus 3 is 8. If you did not get 8, you might want to check and make sure that you indeed did the subtraction before you did the addition. If you did not, then you probably got 2, which is incorrect. Our second example, I'm going to start with parentheses, and I see that I have a lot going on in this particular parentheses. So starting inside, I see I have exponents, subtraction, and multiplication. We need to do the exponent first. 8 squared is 64. So I underlined what I was going to do. I wrote 64 underneath. I am bringing down everything that I have not used, keeping the parentheses intact because I have not simplified all of the way in the parentheses. And now I'm ready to further simplify. Inside of the parentheses, that's where I'm still working. I have subtraction and multiplication. Multiplication comes first. 9 times 7 is 63, so I underlined the 9 times 7. I wrote 63 beneath it, and now I'm going to bring down everything else I have not used. Notice the parentheses still intact because I have not fully simplified inside that parentheses. Last step for fully simplifying in the parentheses, I need to do the subtraction. 64 minus 63 is 1. And because I have now simplified all of the way in the parentheses, I do not need to bring it down. I just write the 1 underneath. And I'm going to bring down everything I haven't used, which is 2 and the minus sign. Now my expression reads 2 minus 1, and 2 minus 1 is 1. Looking into our next section, sometimes it is written as a fraction. Now, this is no need to panic. You need to just look at it kind of like it's 2 completely separate expressions. So, remember that fraction bars are really just a way to indicate division. So when you're doing an expression and it is written as a fraction, you're going to cover up the bottom. Now, do not scribble yours out. Use your thumb or something to cover it up just to kind of pretend like it's not there. So we're only looking at the top of this particular fraction. And now we have an expression very similar to the ones that we've already been simplifying. So let's go ahead and simplify it. First, I see an exponent, I see addition and multiplication. Order of operations says that I need to do the exponent first. So 10 to the second power is 100. And notice I'm writing this off to the side because I don't have the room to just continue down like I did above. After I did the 10 squared, I brought over everything I hadn't used, which was the plus the 4 times 5, so I brought it over next to it. Now I'm going to keep on simplifying. Order of operations says that I need to do multiplication before I do addition. So I'm going to do the multiplication. 4 times 5 is 20. So I'm going to do 100 plus 20 because 4 times 5 when I simplify is 20. Finally, I'm going to simplify 100 plus 20. That gives me 120. And now, when I finish simplifying the top all of the way, I'm going to take that answer and I'm going to put it over a fraction bar, or we could call it a division bar. So at the end of the problem, when I have a number underneath after I simplify the bottom, then we're actually going to have to go ahead and divide them. Moving back. Now that we have simplified the top all of the way, we're going to ignore the top, pretend like it's not there anymore, and we're going to simplify the bottom. Looking at the bottom, inside of the parentheses, I have 6 plus 9, and order of operations says I have to do the parentheses first. 6 plus 9 is 15, so over here I'm going to write 15, and I'm going to bring over everything that I haven't used yet. Now the only thing left for me to do here is to simplify the 4 times 15. 4 times 15, if you put it in your calculator, should give you 60. This number is what goes on the bottom of my fraction or my division problem. And now I have the division problem, 120 divided by 60. I told you earlier that all of your answers should come out to an integer that is a positive or a negative whole number. Put it in your calculator. 120 divided by 60 should give you 2. We're going to go ahead and do one more together, and then you'll do the second y on your own. Looking at the first y, again, we are ignoring the bottom. Cover it up with your thumb or something for right now. And simplify across the top. There are no parentheses, so then the next thing that I would be doing in the order of operations is exponents. I have 2 exponents. I'm going to do the one that appears first. So 4 to the third power is 4 times 4 times 4. If you put that into your calculator, you should get that it is 64. Now I'm going to bring over everything that I have not used yet, which is a minus sign and another 4 to the second power. Now I'm going to simplify my next exponent. 4 to the second power is 16, so I'm going to write 16, and I'm going to bring over everything that I have not used, which is 64 and a minus sign. Finally, I am going to simplify 64 minus 16, and 64 minus 16 should give me 48. Once you have it fully simplified, remember it goes over a fraction bar or a division bar, whatever you would like to call it. Now that I have completely simplified the top, let's go back, ignoring the top, and go through and simplify the bottom. Looking at the bottom, I have multiplication and an exponent. Exponents come first. 2 to the second power is 4, so I'm going to write 4 over here, and then I'm going to bring over everything I have not used, which is a 3 and a multiplication sign. Now I only have one thing left to do on the bottom, so I'm going to simplify. 3 times 4 is 12. Because I have that simplified all of the way, that is what goes underneath my fraction bar or my division bar. And now I need to do this division. Putting it into your calculator if you need to, or you can do it using mental math. 48 divided by 12 gives me 4. So when I simplify this expression all the way, it should be 4. There is one more y. I'd like you to go ahead and pause the video, work through it on your own, unpause the video, and compare your work with mine. Okay, now that you have done your own problem, let's go ahead and go over it together. I'm going to ignore the bottom for right now, and I'm going to look at the top. Now, please be careful. This is the tricky one. Even though multiplication is listed first in the acronym of PEMDAS, remember multiplication, excuse me, multiplication and division go in order from left to right. So in this particular problem, division is listed first in the problem. So that means I have to do the division before I can do the multiplication. Doing the division, 12 divided by 6 is 2. So I'm going to write 2 off to the side, and then I'm going to bring over everything I have not used, which is a multiplication sign, and 4. Finally, I need to simplify this expression. 2 times 4 is 8. Now that I'm completely simplified, I'm going to put it over a fraction in the numerator position. Now that I have simplified the top all the way, I'm going to ignore the top, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to simplify the bottom. Same thing, they are trying to trick you by listing subtraction first in front of the addition. Remember, addition and subtraction are like the same level. They go in order from left to right. If subtraction is listed first, I do the subtraction first. In this particular problem, subtraction is listed first. So I have to do 3 minus 2 before I can do any of the addition. 3 minus 2 is 1, so I'm going to write 1 off to the side. I'm going to bring over everything I have not used, which is a plus and a 3. Continuing to simplify, 1 plus 3 is 4. Fully simplified, it is the denominator of this fraction. And now I can do the division. 8 divided by 4 equals 2. If you did not get a whole number that is either positive or negative, so an integer, some of you may have gotten a fraction, that means you did not do your order of operations correctly. All right, go ahead and turn it over to the next page. When there is an unknown value, a variable is the letter, can be used as a placeholder to represent that quantity. When you see 2a, that is implied that it is multiplication. So this is 2 times a, just as 5x is written as 5 times x, the multiplication is implied. So when a value is given for a variable, you can use substitution to plug that value into your expression, into your algebraic expression, and then simplify. So our first one says 2y. Remember, that is written as 2 times, and then instead of y, I'm going to put a parentheses, and I'm going to plug in the number that y represents. Looking up at the top, they say x is 2, y is 3, z is 10. Because this asks for y, I need to be using the value for y. So you'll notice that I kept it inside of a parentheses. It really helps because it lets you see that this is the number. Now for these ones, these values are positive, but that may not always be true. So if there was a negative, this would also be nice because it would help keep the negative in front of the number. Now we're back to a numerical expression, which we could solve. 2 times 3 is 6. All right, let's do W. Same thing, when x equals 2, y equals 3, and z equals 10, simplify z squared. So where they gave me the variable, I'm going to put a parentheses, and I'm going to plug in that number, and then whatever that number is, I'm going to square that number. Looking up at the top, They asked for the letter Z. So I find the letter Z and I see that the letter Z is 10. So inside the parentheses, I'm going to put 10. Now I'm going to go through and simplify. 10 squared, we worked on this earlier, is 10 times 10. 10 times 10 is 100. There are two Y's underneath. Please do both of them on your own. When you finish, pause the video. When you finish, unpause the video and compare your work with my work. All right, looking at my next one. When x equals 2, y equals 3, z equals 10, simplify y squared. Once again, where the variable was, I'm going to put parentheses, and then I'm going to put squared because I know that I want to square it. And I'm going to look up here. The variable they asked me to substitute was y. I find y equals 3. So 3 is what the numerical value I'm going to substitute in. Remember, 3 squared is 3 times 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. Last one in this little section. When x equals 2, y equals 3, z equals 10, simplify x minus 1. So same thing, where I had a variable, I'm going to put parentheses, and then I'm going to figure out what I'm substituting in for that, minus 1. Now, they asked me for the variable x, so I need to go up top and find x. They said that x is 2, so wherever there was an x, I'm going to substitute in the number 2. Notice there are no operations inside this parentheses. So after I've substituted it in and I see that there's nothing to simplify in the parentheses, I can go ahead and drop them. 2 minus 1, and 2 minus 1 is 1. Now, you should be able to do fractions and negative numbers in these as well. So, it is the same idea or the same concept. It's just using some fractions and some negative numbers. Your calculator, you can use it to multiply the fractions. I don't need to see the work that you're multiplying the fractions. You can literally just multiply them on the calculator and be done. Getting started, when x equals 1/3, y equals 4, and z equals a negative 2, simplify 2 times y plus 6. So I'm going to rewrite the expression. Remember, 2y is rewritten as 2 times, and I'm not going to rewrite y. I'm going to put empty parentheses so that I can substitute in that number, and then I'm going to write plus 6. Now I'm going to substitute in for y as the variable. I'm going to come up top. I'm going to find the y, and I'm going to use that number and plug it in. So y equals 4, so 4 is what goes in for y. Using order of operations, we have to simplify our expression. There's multiplication and there's addition. Because multiplication comes first, we're going to do the multiplication first. 2 times 4 is 8. Bring down everything I have not used yet. And 8 plus 6 is, I believe, 14. Let's do another one together. We're actually going to do this y together because it's one of the ones that has a fraction, and then I'm going to have you do the w and the second y on your own. So when x equals 1/3, y equals 4, and z equals a negative 2, simplify 3 times x minus 9. So plugging it in, remember 3x can be rewritten as 3 times, and then I'm not going to write x, I'm going to put parentheses for what I'm going to substitute in for x, minus 9. Looking up to the top, because I want the variable x to be substituted in, I'm going to go find x, and this right here says x is 1/3, so I'm going to plug in 1/3. Now, because we are past the fraction unit, you are more than welcome to just plug that into your calculator. Order of operations says that I must do multiplication before I do subtraction. So first up, I have to do 3 times 1/3. You can put it into your calculator. 3 times, hit your fraction key and type in the fraction 1/3. I do not have a calculator with me currently, so I'm going to multiply this out the way we did in the last unit. 3 has to be made as an improper fraction, so that's 3 over 1 times 1/3. Remember, for multiplying fractions, you can multiply straight across. 3 times 1 is 3. Multiply across the bottom. 1 times 3 is also 3. And then 3 divided by 3 leaves you with 1. This is most definitely simpler to do on your calculator. 3 times, make it a fraction, 1/3, hit equals, it should tell you 1. After you've done the multiplication, you're going to bring down what you have not used, which is the -9. You could punch this into your calculator. You could punch in 1 minus 9, or if you would prefer to use our integer rules from the previous unit, we do not do subtraction like this. We always change it to keeping the first the same. Subtraction becomes addition, and then the second number goes to its opposite. The opposite of a +9 is a -9. And now I have 1 plus a -9. They have different signs. Different signs mean that I would need to subtract. 9 minus 1 is 8. 9 is the bigger number. 9 is negative. My answer will be a negative. Ladies and gentlemen, if you plugged 1 minus 9 into your calculator, it would immediately have taken you down to this -8. And that's perfectly acceptable. Use the calculator to your advantage. There are 2 left that I would like you to do. Do the W up here on your own, and then do this second Y on your own. The second Y is going to feel a little bit difficult, but remember before, plug in what you need for your variables, simplify the top, and then simplify the bottom. Now that you've had a chance to work them out, hopefully you pause the video. That way you got practice like we talked about yesterday. Our first one, we're going to plug in z squared plus 4. So for the z, where I am plugging in the z, I'm going to put a parentheses. And I know that I'm going to square it, and then I'm going to add 4 to it. Because they asked for the variable z, I'm going to go up to the top, and I'm going to find the variable z. Z is a -2. So I'm going to plug that in to my expression, -2. Please remember, this is -2 times a -2. So I'm going to model this over on the side. -2 times a -2. A negative times a negative means my answer will be a positive, and 2 times 2 is 4. So a -2 squared is positive 4. After I have simplified that, I'm going to bring down everything I have not used yet, which is the +4. And finally, I'm going to simplify. 4 plus 4 is 8. Last one. When x equals 1/3, y equals 4, and z equals a -2, simplify 3 times z plus 6 times x, all divided or over y. Let's start by plugging everything in where it goes. This is 3 times, and then there's a variable, so I'm going to put some parentheses, plus 6 times, and another variable, so I'm going to put some parentheses, all over, and then I'm going to put parentheses for the variable that I'm going to plug in. Now, there are multiple variables we're using in this expression, so take it one at a time. The first variable I have to substitute in for is z. Look up here, find z. Z is a -2, so I'm going to put -2 there. Moving on to the second variable I'm looking for. It is x. So x, look up to the top, is 1/3. Put 1/3 inside the parentheses. And then finally, the last variable to substitute is y. That's on the bottom. Look up here, y is 4, so I'm going to put 4 on the bottom. Now, just like before, when we had the expressions that looked like fractions, we ignored the bottom for right now, and we simplified across the top first. I have multiplication, addition, and multiplication. So I'm going to work in order from left to right, and I'm going to do multiplication first. First, I'm going to do 3 times -2. You have a calculator, use the calculator. 3 times -2. A positive times a negative means my answer will be negative, and 3 times 2 is 6, so it is a -6. Bring over everything that I have not used, which is plus 6 times 1/3. Okay, I still have multiplication. I need to simplify that multiplication first. 6 times 1/3. You can certainly plug this into your calculator and do it on your calculator. I do not need to see you actually working this out. 6 times 1/3 gives me 2. So I'm going to write 2 over here. I'm going to bring over everything I haven't used, which is a -6, a plus sign, and then 2. And now finally, I can plug this into my calculator. -6 plus a positive 2 is a -4. And remember, this is all a fraction, so I'm going to put it over a fraction bar or a division bar. Now that I have simplified the top, I'm going to go back and I'm going to ignore what's on the top and simplify the bottom. There are no operations to do on the bottom, so I simply drop the parentheses and bring 4 all the way over and put it as the denominator. Now I have a division problem. I'm going to rewrite this down here where I've got a little bit more room. -4 divided by a positive 4. A negative divided by a positive means my answer will be negative. And 4 divided by 4 is 1. So this is a -1. All right, turn it to the back of this page. We are almost done. Finally, for our last section in our notes, when turning a word problem into an algebraic or numerical expression, we use keyword indicators. So words that mean addition, some examples: plus, sum, total, more than, combined, increased. Those are all words that mean addition. Some words that mean subtraction: minus, less than, difference, decreased by, deduct, loss, left. Okay? Those are all words that mean subtraction. Multiplication words: times, multiply, product. The word of means to multiply. There are words that when you read them, they specifically tell you what to multiply by. So, if you see the word double, that specifically means that you are multiplying by 2. If you see the word triple, that means you are specifically multiplying by 3. And if you see half, that means that you are specifically multiplying by the fraction 1/2. Words that mean division: divide, divided by, over, quotient, divided into. So our last section is to translate each word problem into, it is not an algebraic expression. These ones are going to actually be numeric expressions. So the product of 4 and 8 minus 7. Product right here tells me that I'm going to multiply. And it says the product of 4 and 8. So that means I need to take 4 multiplied by 8. So I'm going to first write that 4 times 8. Reading the rest of the problem, I see that it has the word minus. Minus means subtraction. And it says minus 7. So in my expression, I'm going to go ahead and write minus 7. And now I'm going to simplify using order of operations. Order of operations tells me to do the multiplication first. So multiplication before subtraction. Oh, that did not work the way I wanted it to. Hold on. There we go. All right, so first I'm going to do the multiplication. 4 times 8. When I multiply them, I get 32. So I'm going to write 32 underneath, bring down minus 7 because that hasn't been used yet. And now I'm going to simplify the rest of the way. 32 minus 7 gives me 25. Looking at W, it says twice the difference between 9 and 3. Now this is very specific. It says twice the difference, and the difference is between 9 and 3. So because it is specifically twice the difference, it doesn't say twice 9, it says twice the difference, it means that I have to do the subtraction first. And to show that you have to do subtraction first, you would have to put it inside of a parentheses. So I would, in a parentheses, do the difference between 9 and 3. So I would write 9 minus 3. And now, because I want to do twice that, twice means specifically to multiply it by 2. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to multiply it by 2. Order of operations says I have to do what's in the parentheses first. 9 minus 3 is 6. Bringing down what I have not used, 6 times 2 leaves me with 12. There are 2 more problems for you to do. Go ahead and pause the video, do each one of them. When you're finished, unpause the video and compare your answers with mine. All right, 10 deducted from 18. Deducted means to subtract. And because it is taking away the 10, it is not 10 minus 18, but rather 18 minus 10. This is a pretty simple numerical expression. Simplifying, 18 minus 10 leaves me with 8. Finally, triple the sum of 2 and 5. This is very similar to the W before. Because it says triple the sum, I have to make sure I do that sum first. And to make sure I do the sum first, it has to be inside of a parentheses. So for this one, the sum, it means addition. So inside of a parentheses, I'm going to have the sum of 2 and 5. So I write 2 plus 5. Now I want to triple that. To triple something means specifically to multiply by 3. So I'm going to multiply that by 3. Order of operations tells me I have to do inside the parentheses first. 2 plus 5 is 7. Bring down everything I have not used. 7 times 3 is 21. All right, you are finished with your notes. Go ahead and go show them to the substitute and then get your assignment. Work on your assignment for the rest of the class period.